Everyone, and welcome back to Storytime with Miss Tanya. Today we are going to be reading a book called The Keeping Quilt, and it's one of our library books at the school. The author's name is Patricia Polacco. I hope I said that right. Polacco, sorry. All right, let's get started. When great grandma Anna came to America, she wore the same thick overcoat and big boots she had worn for farm work, but her family weren't dirt farmers anymore. In New York City, her father's work was hauling things on a wagon, and the rest of the family made artificial flowers all day. Everyone was in a hurry, and it was so crowded, not like in back home Russia. But all the same, it was their home, and most of their neighbors were just like them. When Anna went to school, English sounded to her like pebbles dropping into shallow water. Shh, shh, shh. In 6 months, she was speaking English. Her parents almost never learned, so she spoke English for them too. The only things she had left of back home Russia were her dress and the babushka she'd like to throw up into the air when she was dancing. And her dress was getting too small. After her mother had sewn her a new one, she took her old dress and babushka. Then, from the basket of old clothes, she took Uncle Vladimir's shirt, Aunt Havala's nightdress, and an apron of Aunt Natasha's. "We will make a quilt to help us always remember home," Anna's mother said. "It will be like having the family in back home Russia dance around us all night." And so it was. Anna's mother invited all the neighborhood ladies. They cut out animals and flowers from the scraps of clothing. Anna kept the needles threaded and handed them to the ladies as they needed them. The border of the quilt was made of Anna's babushka. It's beautiful. On Friday nights, Anna's mother would say the prayers that started the Sabbath. The family ate challah and chicken soup. The quilt was the tablecloth. Anna grew up and fell in love with great-grandpa Sasha. To show he wanted to be her husband, he gave Anna a gold coin, a dried flower, and a piece of rock salt, all tied into a linen handkerchief. The gold was for wealth, the flower for love, and the salt so their lives would have flavor. She accepted the hanky. They were engaged. Under the wedding huppah, Anna and Sasha promised each other love and understanding. After the wedding, the men and women celebrated separately. When my grandma Carol was born, Anna wrapped her daughter in the quilt to welcome her warmly into the world. Carol was given a gift of gold, flour, salt, and bread. Gold, so oh, I'm so sorry, guys. Gold, so she would never know poverty. A flower, so she would always know love. Salt, so her life would always have flavor. And bread, so that she would never know hunger. Carol learned to keep the Sabbath and to cook and clean and do washing. "Married you'll be someday," Anna told Carol. And this book is so new that I have a hard time turning the pages. And again, the quilt became a wedding huppah, this time for Carol's wedding to Grandpa George. Men and women celebrated together, but they still did not dance together. In Carol's wedding bouquet was a gold coin, bread, and salt. Carol and George moved to a farm in Michigan. and Great-Grandma Anna came to live with them. The quilt once again wrapped a new little girl, Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen called Anna Lady Grandma. She had grown very old and was sick a lot of the time. The quilt kept her legs warm. On Anna's 98th birthday, the cake was a kulich, a rich cake with raisins and candied fruit in it. When Great-Grandma Anna died, prayers were said to lift her soul to heaven. My mother, Mary Ellen, was now grown up. When Mary Ellen left home, she took the quilt with her. When she became a bride, the quilt became her huppah. For the first time, friends who were not Jews came to the wedding. My mother wore a suit, but in her bouquet were gold, bread, and salt. The quilt welcomed Patricia, Patricia, into the world, and it was the tablecloth for my first birthday party. At night, I would trace my fingers around the edges of each animal on the quilt before I went to sleep. I told my mother stories about the animals on the quilt. She told me whose sleeve had made the horse, whose apron had made the chicken, whose dress had made the flowers, and whose babushka went around the edge of the quilt. The quilt was a pretend cape when I was in the bull ring, or sometimes a tent in the steaming Amazon jungle. At my wedding to Esno Mario, men and women danced together. In my bouquet were gold bread and salt and a sprinkle of wine, so I would always know laughter. "20 years ago, I held Tracy Denise in the quilt for the first time. Someday, she too will leave home and she will take the quilt with her." The end. Oh, that was a beautiful book about family. You know, there's a lot of families that keep traditions or um, things from the past that get handed down, kind of like this quilt. I don't think in my family we never really did that, but when our first son was born, we bought a beautiful wooden handmade cradle, like a bassinet, and which is what we will be doing, is handing it down from family member to family member who happens to have babies. So I think that's a really nice tradition that we have started. So I hope you guys enjoyed the story. I really enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.